believe in the possibility. So I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm just going to tell you what's been reported. And the first ghost story I ever heard was from the owner's daughter. I don't believe her to be crazy or a liar. I could be wrong on both counts, but she reported, and we'll continue walking now. And while walking down this hallway, just like you were, from around the corner here on the right, a little girl came and ran up the hallway, and then ran up to her and right through her. So that's a little unusual. The owner's daughter. Yeah, that witnessed that. So come on in and spread out this way. Let everyone back there kind of. 214, fine over there. This room, lots of activity reported. Come on in. Let everyone. I guess you guys will get to see it on the way around. But we've had reports of that little girl, and then last year, I know we live in an age of Photoshop, but I promise no one here at the Hotel Congress did anything to this image. This was given to us by someone, go ahead and pass that around, staying in that room, and it's kind of creepy. So, again, if you live in days where it's really easy to alter photos, but that's a pretty creepy image there. I don't know what's going on with that.
That was taken in 214.
We looked it up on the internet. Do you have the images, the pictures?
You want to see it real quick? I just have the one. Good, let me take, it was in the mirror on your little. Well, I'll
Can we
show
go in
you.
your room?
Right here.
Can we look in your room?
There?
That's nothing, that's the carpet.
Do you mind if some of the people peek in the room as we walk by?
No, not at all.
Hide the body.
I want to see. You guys want to see?
Do you want to join the rest of the tour?
Let's see. I know my mom. Oh, there's a ghost sighting over here.
I'm fine with that.
Just myself. One or two is, yeah.
All the same size.
She's gonna be so creeped out staying there today.
All right. An unexpected twist there. I don't know if you heard what he was saying, but the photos were kind of rearranged on the wall when he came back a little bit. They were crooked. And we'll keep the picture moving around this way up to the front. If anyone hasn't seen it by the time we get around, just let me know. We're going to come this way now and just kind of fill out this area. We're going to focus on this room, so you're front row if you want to.
Ooh, 220.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. Be quiet. Maybe they just don't want a maid, but maybe they are sleeping. We'll keep this brief. But so just going with the assumption now that there is a phenomenon of ghosts, there's a lot of explanations of what it really could be. And one I often hear is that, we're living creatures and we have kind of this electrical and chemical energy inside of us, and maybe if we hang out in one place for a long time, some of that energy can kind of drain into the ground around us. And if you want to go with that theory, this room would be the one that you want to use to prove that.
Yeah.
So, other side here, we have Vince. And this is an old man that lived, worked, and eventually died here in the hotel over 40 years. He was a veteran of World War II. He was a mechanic in the 1st Mobile Infantry. He didn't have much family. I'd heard his mother and brothers had all died during the Great Spanish Flu epidemic that pretty intense. I think it killed something like 1/10 of the world's population went down, maybe even more. So he didn't have anybody, and he came over here, got off the train, got a drink, some food, got a job. They hired him, got a place to live, and he lived and finally passed on. Now, some people give these other ghost tours, and they say he was very lively, gregarious, and friendly. That's not true at all. Anyone tries to tell you that, they never knew the man. I got to know him the last couple years. I knew him for 2 years, and he was so quiet, we maybe exchanged 200 words, and I went to the reservation to get him his cigarettes and stuff, so, and fed him in the cafe almost every day. So he's a real quiet guy. I suspect he was somewhat spiritual. I got to peek in his room a few times, and he had a lot of Jesus and Mary pictures. People report in this room, and just kind of objects out of place. Someone reported that their cell phone was unplugged. Nothing that, could really be consequentially, that's definitely a ghost, but, a lot of times I think some of these ghosts might be another spirit, people drinking too many drinks down in the tap room and getting an idea. But people, again, they do report seeing vents. I believe if, there is another place, I think he's probably actually moved on. But who knows, maybe it's just a trace of him and not his mind or soul. So I leave that for you all to decide. We're going to come around now. We'll talk about one more room, and then we can talk about Tucson ghost history in general. So, come this way we go, the long way, just so you can see the whole second floor. Some people report that when they walk past this area, they feel a coldness. Give me your money's worth here. That's what
Right here.
we got about 40 rooms up here. And the hotel would have looked, the 3rd floor would have looked pretty much identical to this. We'll come into this area. So are y'all pretty much from Tucson or lived here a while?
Yes.
All right, so then a lot of us probably know Tucson comes from a Native American word, TUCSON, which means water at the base of Black Mountain. The Black Mountain being a mountain, and the water being the Santa Cruz River there. Now, people have lived in this area. I've heard it's actually one of the longest continually occupied areas in the entire world. There's places in Egypt and stuff where there's ruins, but no one stayed there. So people have been actually living here continuously for over 2,000 years, maybe even longer. And if you're of the theory that, those energies are going to come into a place, then this would be the place. Especially this downtown area of Tucson, which is the longest occupied. This is where they set up by the river. And then when the Spanish came, that's where they were. So this area is where everyone has been living and kind of doing their things, dying, and romance and tragedy and things like that. I'd tell you about a few of the other ghost areas here that you can kind of check out or investigate. There's the El Tiradito Shrine. Everyone know about that? It's really beautiful at night. It's a shrine dedicated to a man who was he was having an affair with a woman, and her husband found out, killed him, and left his body laying there in the street, and said basically no one can bury him, which is very horrible, especially in the Catholic faith. They were Mexican or Spanish descent, Mexican, I believe. But it's a really beautiful adobe wall with candles on it at night. It's just really neat at nighttime when it's all lit up. So if you get a chance, you can go check that out. It's over on 10th Avenue, and just look up the Wishing Shrine Tucson El Tiradito. The castaway is what it means in Spanish, because he was the castaway one. That other areas where some things have happened. The Pioneer Hotel fire. Is anyone familiar with that? It's the largest number of people to die in one single event in Tucson. About 40 years ago now, a young man was at a party there, and he was blamed for the fire. He spent the last 40 years or so in jail, only to be exonerated. So that's really sad. He was, I think, like 16 when they put him in jail, and he'd been in there, and now they're saying he probably had nothing to do with it. Other phenomena in the area. Anyone seen the movie Tombstone or a fan of Western history? Wyatt Earp killed Frank Stillwell right across the street on the Maynard's Market platform. So we got stuff going on here. We got a lot of stuff. I guess my final favorite one, and then I'll talk about what happened in this room. I was reading a book called The Devil's Highway, and it's not about Tucson per se, but Tucson's mentioned in there. They mentioned that Speedway near 4th Avenue, there's a vacant lot that is supposedly one of the entrances into hell, where you can cross in between this physical world and into hell. And the way they actually phrase it in the book is that you can see the gateway to hell from the Yokohama Rice Bowl. Of course, it's now Mama's Hawaiian Barbecue, for those of you that know. So be careful when you're out there at night in that area. You don't want to lose anybody.
Nice.
So can this energy, can it affect someone? Maybe like in the movie The Shining, where someone that's maybe a little unbalanced is then kind of talked to by these energies or ghosts and pushed beyond. And this room would be kind of an argument for that, where young lady Jamie Friedlander, she was staying kind of on just a little vacation without her husband, who was an architect at a very prominent architecture firm, IMP, if anyone knows anything about architecture. In any event, she was staying here for a little while. People, the desk clerk, got to know her, the bartenders. We had a bartender at that point in time who was very surly, just kind of really mean guy. He wanted to get a Bloody Mary past 2 or 3 in the afternoon. He would basically refuse to make it and say that's a drink you have in the morning. If you wanted a glass of water, he wasn't going to pour it for you. He'd say there's a drinking fountain in the lobby and you go help yourself. But I'm a bartender and I make drinks, and I make the drinks I want to make, really. His customer service could use a little bit. The people actually enjoy being abused, so he had like a lot of fans. But Jamie didn't enjoy being abused. They got into an argument over what, I don't know, but she pulled out a gun, and I don't know if she was actually trying to shoot Jack. She missed. She might have just been trying to scare him. In the event, she ran up the stairs here, locked herself in her room. Police were notified by the front desk clerk. They came and they're knocking on the door asking to be let in. They're also filling up in the little closet down below, and basically they tell Jamie that she's got to come out. She says, no, I don't want to come out. Well, you know, nothing too terrible's happened. No one's been injured. We can kind of talk this through. There might be some consequences, but it's really not the end of the world. But I don't know, Jamie didn't feel that way. Maybe there was something going on in her head. No, there definitely was something going on in her head. She refuses to come out, and the police fire tear gas into the room. I can only imagine she went into the bathroom when she died, that maybe she went in there, closed the door, maybe she tried to stuff a towel under the door to avoid the tear gas, but she was finally overcome by the tear gas, and she took the gun that she wielded earlier and put it in her mouth, and tragically took her own life. So, you know, we've had, and this happened about within the last 20 years. I've been here 19 years. It happened right about when I first started working here. There's been a few suicides in like the 500-foot area. There's been at least 3. A year or 2 later, there's a beer truck downstairs now in the parking lot. A man ended his life there after he'd come to have lunch. Him and his wife were getting divorced. They came to have lunch and talk about the terms, and he got up during a very busy lunch crowd and tragically took his life there. That was about 17, 18 years ago. This last year, a young woman ended her life on the tracks across the street. It was actually her second attempt. 2 weeks prior, one of our managers was coming to work, and he saw her laying on the tracks, kind of over by 7th, over at that area where you can drive across the tracks. He saw her on the tracks, got her up, got the police, they rescued her, and then 2 weeks later, again during a very busy lunch shift, she went and stood in front of a moving train over there. So, something going on here? Is it something to do with the energies here? Who can say? Maybe it's just life.
Did the man shoot himself?
The man shot himself. But in any event, I kind of the feeling that, you know, you're one place long enough, life's going to happen, and the other half of life is death. So I don't know if it's anything special or particular, but that's what I've seen here. That's what's happened here. Anyone has any further questions, or we can go down and take a look at the Dillinger photos here available. Thank you so much for coming out. That pretty much concludes the tour, unless, like I said, anyone has any more questions.